What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today to talk a little football, specifically modern and ultra modern quarterbacks. How has the offseason treated them? We are in mid August. We are a mere couple weeks away from actual NFL games firing off. And I was curious if we went back 6 months or so, right after the Super Bowl, how has the market treated this group of quarterbacks that everyone seems to be talking about the most, chasing? And that would be Patrick Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Tua, and Hurts. Now, there are a lot of other names out there, but those are the ones that we've heard the most during the offseason. I'm excluding last year's class because I typically like to look at graded stuff. And because that product came out so late in the cycle, we just don't have a lot of slabs of those players yet. So your Trevor Lawrences, your Zach Wilsons, Trey Lances, those sorts of guys, I am excluding from this conversation just because we don't have a lot of graded card data. I don't mind glancing at Raw on occasion, but even that just has not been on the market that long. We just got silver prisms of those guys, like 8 weeks ago. The market's still trying to figure itself out on those, and then the season's going to start, and it's going to shake it up like a snow globe and take it where it will. So let's go ahead and dive in. We are going to mostly actually focus on optic hollows with the exclusion of Mahomes. I just pulled both of them. But for the other guys, we're just going to look at optic hollows. The reason why I chose optic hollows are the silver prisms in football are extremely short printed and very low pop. They go for really high sums of money and they don't transact very often. Base is a little, it's base. Base football is actually decently respected compared to base basketball cards. So Optic Hollows felt kind of a good medium ground. It's a nicer card. It's a lower pop card. It's not quite a Prism Silver, so it's kind of in between. So I went that route to give us some good solid. They transact often enough so we can kind of see what things we're doing. What I was mainly curious about is how has the offseason treated these guys? The last 6 months or so in cards, generally speaking from a macro level, so. Most stuff's come way down. So if things just hold even, that's a pretty good sign. If things actually crept up a little bit, that's awesome too. And we'll see if there's any takeaways that we can make out of this to roll into next season. I originally, when I thought down the concept of this video, I considered going back further and looking at multiple seasons. The problem is that the card market was so nutty in 2020 and 2021. I'm just not sure how. I think you can glean stuff from that information, but it just gets a lot trickier because prices were so crazy and so swingy. I don't know if it was a true representation of what was going on. I think this football season and this NBA season, and we got this a little bit towards the back half of last year's NBA, but I think this football and basketball season, I feel like these will be the first clean seasons, if you will. Like I said, I do think we got it a little bit for NBA last year because the market kind of started taking a turn right after Christmas, like really kind of dropping down to the next level. But football, a decent portion of that was still wrapped up in the we don't really know what the hell's going on time. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how things play out once the season starts. My general perception of how this is going to play out, and I'm guessing, and then we'll dive into some charts and graphs here. The guys that have tons of expectations on them, Trey Lance, Tua, Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, etc. The names that we all know. Those guys that get talked about on a daily basis, that are on all the vlogs, or on everyone's talking about. The second they lose a game or two, their stuff's going to start to backslide immediately. They're going to have to play out of their mind and go on some hellacious runs to actually have prices increase. I could be wrong. That's just what I think. There's a lot getting baked into these guys already. Personally, I've said this every season. I generally don't like to hold football into season unless it's guys that have zero to no expectations on them. So if you're taking flyers on guys, especially position players that are like dirt cheap, like think Cooper Kupp last year. Now that gets risky. You got to catch the right guy, this, that, and the other thing. But more so quarterbacks. If you wanted a guy that always intrigued me was Gardner Minshew. His stuff's super cheap. Maybe Jalen Hurts runs around a lot. Could he get hurt? Could he just not be good? I don't know. He could win the Super Bowl or he could be benched. Who knows? If Minshew got starting run, would his prices get a little bit of a bump that you could quick flip him? The advantage there is that you're into it for nothing. You see a lot of people doing that with Kellen Mond. I believe they're kind of cashing out now because he had a good preseason quarter because things are still crazy like that. But guys that have little to no expectations, I would carry those guys in the seasons. You're probably into them for nothing. And it's a lot easier for those prices to double or triple up than it is for a Mahomes Silver Prism at $3,000, $4,000, whatever they're at now. So that's kind of my general macro approach to football. I generally don't like to carry anything in the season. Any one of the trendy names, I want them gone. I usually use the national at that point to pivot out of almost all my football and move it into other stuff, either basketball or baseball. In this case, I move most of it into basketball. So let's go ahead and look at some charts and graphs. Market movers, link in the description down below. $1 for the first month if you use the old coupon code, and you can have all these charts and graphs at your fingertips. And they do have new pricing models that you could check out at that link as well. First up, Patrick Mahomes. I made a video, I don't remember exactly when, that said this is the most overpriced card in sports. I think it was somewhere in January or February. I pulled both his Optic Holo PSA 10 and the Silver Prism PSA 10 just to get a little bit of movement on this because the Silver Prism is so pricey. So how has this card held up? And once again, if we go back 180 days, it works kind of nice. It takes us right back, right after the Super Bowl. I actually ran this directly from the day after the Super Bowl. So it's like 183 days or something screwy like that. Silver Prism PSA 10, one of the most shilled cards in existence, was $6K at the Super Bowl or right after the Super Bowl. Now down to $3,600, a 40% drop on that one. The Optic Holo has held slightly better, only a 25% drop on that one. It was $3K back at the Super Bowl. It is now down to $2,200. So that gap has narrowed quite a bit. The Holo is actually much lower pop at $660 compared to the Silver Prism at $900. Once again, the Mahomes buzz is nil. Like I said, I talked to dealers at the National that had a lot of nice Mahomes stuff, and they said no one was looking at him. That being said, we do see, as we kind of watch these kind of downtrend throughout the summer, see the Optic Holo has a little bit of a swing up here the last couple days, and the Silver Prism, it's only one sale, so I'm not willing to bank anything on that one yet. But it did get down to $3,600 and then popped back up to $3,650, so not a huge increase. The interesting one to me is the Holo slightly sliding up. Got to $1,775, and then we see it at $2K, and then we see it at $2,200. I still think Mahomes is pretty overpriced, to be quite honest. It'll be interesting to see how that team performs. It's not so much hate on Mahomes, it's that the AFC is absolutely loaded, and they took a step back. Yeah, I understand they brought in different receivers. Yeah, I understand it's Andy Reid. Yeah, I understand that it's Patrick Mahomes. But that team's getting older, not younger. And they lost their biggest threat in Tyreek Hill. And the AFC as a whole, in my opinion, leveled up a little bit. So that's just going to make it that much tougher for them to get back and to maintain 3 to 4K prices on your cards. Guess what? You better be winning Super Bowls. So Mahomes still has a lot of stuff baked into his prices, even though he has the ring. So that's Patrick Mahomes. So his stuff has gone down. It did not hold, but his stuff was extremely overpriced to begin with. Next up, let's look at Allen and Lamar Jackson. Once again, we used Optic Holos here to kind of explain why we went that route. Both PSA 10s, once again, going back 180 days, puts us right into late February. How have these two cards held up? Pretty decently, actually. Lamar Optic Holo is up 20% from 500 to 600 over that time period, and Allen's are up from 1400 to 1650, a 17% increase from right after the Super Bowl till today. And once again, you kind of see the same thing. The blue line is Lamar. This was all the way down to under $500 on the 4th of July. And then we see it slowly creeping back up again. We have a sale in late July for $575. That was basically during the National. And then one after it for $610. Same thing here for Allen. This got all the way down to $1,200 on 8/2. There's a $1,300, a $1,200. It went back up to $1,400, and then the last sale is now at $1,650. Back that up with what we saw with the Mahomes optic hollow here. It does seem like we might be seeing that last minute run up to the season. We've not really seen it most of the off season. You can see this stuff basically was flat up until this last little bit here. Same with Allen. That line was basically flat to maybe even slightly trending down. And all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, has kind of bailed this card out. That being said, these two cards just staying flat, in my opinion, would have been a little bit of a win. Yeah, you had your money parked there. You didn't make anything. You didn't lose anything. But if you have money parked in cards, you didn't lose anything, especially modern or ultra modern. That's not the worst thing in the world, considering how most stuff is performed. Next up, Burrow and Herbert. Same thing. Optic hollow, PSA 10s. Herbert's much higher pop at 1,400. Burrow's much lower at 800. And I finagled the dates a little bit on this. I'm a couple days past the Super Bowl because I wanted Burrow's prices to fully correct. I didn't want him to get penalized because he had prices that were sky high coming off the Super Bowl and then they pulled down. So this is where they leveled out at. It's like 4 or 5 days after the Super Bowl, but we're not dead on 180 days like the other ones. Come down here. Herbert actually up slightly by 8%. Burrow down slightly, 4%. So Burrow's basically held, really hasn't gone anywhere. Herbert, the smallest tick up. So not crazy movement there. And if we look over the last couple days, like the other ones, these really have not sprung out of line. They did go down and go right back up again, but they're still floating around the same general price band of where they have been lately. So no tick up on these guys like we saw on the others, which I find a little bit interesting. You know, Allen and Jackson getting a little bit of buzz there, the country singers, and then Mahomes also getting a little bit of uptick, but Burrow and Herbert not. Let's look at the trendy guys, Hurts and Tua. These are the guys that names were bantied all around the National along with Trey Lance. They were extremely popular. Once again, optic hollow 10s, pop 450 on the Tua, pop 286 on the Jalen Hurts. Going back 180 days, the Tua is up 15%. The Hurts, the biggest winner of the offseason, up 50%. Now, both these guys got buzz because of what their teams did. That's what really sparked it. Tua got Tyreek Hill, and there was actually, the optic hollow didn't show this, but when I was looking at his base Prism, he got a really big bump during the Tyreek Hill trade for like a week or two, and then it pulled back and then kind of leveled off. The Hurts, they traded for AJ Brown, and his stuff kind of took off, and he's just been generally trendy throughout. He's been the talk of the town. He was probably one of the most popular players at the National in regards to guy's name you heard throw around a ton. Everyone was looking for Jalen Hurts stuff. But he is one. He has a classic case. If they come out, and same with Tua, if Tua comes out and looks bad, if Hurts comes out and looks bad for a week or two, these things are going to nosedive. And they could rally back. That's what happened with Herbert and what happened with Burrow last year. They had huge dips in season, and then both had run-ups depending on when it was. Herbert had a run-up and then pulled back again. Burrow had a pretty big decline, a very big dip in the late part of the season, and then shot up as he made his playoff run kind of out of nowhere. It was kind of surprising. So there is opportunities to, as we always say around here, they let you buy him back. If you really like Hurts, there's a decent chance you might be able to get his stuff back cheaper in season. Now, obviously, if he comes out and they rip off 4 in a row, different story. But if you were into him, if you were in the Hurts, if you bought a lot of Hurts in the offseason and you're up 30 to 50%, I would at least be taking some profits off that before the season started. If, another channel favorite, you bought multiples, you should have some to sell off, tuck a couple away if you want to get a little gambly, and carry them in the season. So that's where we sit. Now the fun begins. What does the market do over the next 2 weeks? Do we continue to see run-ups on a lot of these guys as we close in on the beginning of the season? And then the fun really begins. What happens when the season starts? That's when things get wild. Curious for your thoughts and comments down below. Are you selling football? Buying football? Somewhere in the middle? What are you doing? Let me know in the comments down below. Catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.